Let's focus now on day 2 of the first state capture-related fraud and corruption trial. It relates to a nearly 25 million rand contract awarded to Nulane Investments, which is owned by Gupta associate Iqbal Sharma. The situation in court became tense today when a witness was likened to a dog on a leash. The court argues that the tender was awarded in 2011 without a competitive bidding process, and the company did not even have the expertise to perform the work. Our reporter Moloko Moloto is at the Bloemfontein High Court. He joins us now. Hello, Moloko. So, day 2 of the trial, in a nutshell, what transpired?
Hi, Salibadet. Well, day 2 commenced with the first state witness, Mr. Simphiwe Mahlangu, who began his testimony yesterday, continuing today for about 5 hours, and the cross-examination was kick-started by Advocate Ismail Semenya, who tried to get Mr. Mahlangu to confirm or either deny whether the former CFO of the Department of Free State, Ms. Pati Dlamini, authorized, I beg pardon, the former head of department, actually, Dimakato Morosi, authorized the payment of 12 million rand, the first payment that was made to Nulane. So the witness then said, look, my mandate primarily was to investigate compliance with regard to the supply chain management. I did not necessarily have to look into the payments. And the defense kept on saying that, but if indeed you are a forensic investigator, the least you should have done was that you ought to have gone to check who might have authorized, and because then it means you are incompetent. So essentially the defense was trying to discredit the state witness. It then went further to the other defense lawyers who also wanted to find out why, for instance, there's one defense lawyer who wanted to know why Mr. Mahlangu, after he had written his affidavit, why then did he send that affidavit to the investigating officer, Mr. Mandla Mdolo? And they were essentially trying to create an impression that that particular affidavit was influenced by the investigating officer. Mr. Mahlangu was not independent. And of course, he denied all those. Sally.
And does that relate to the incident when one of the defense lawyers likened the state witness to a dog on a leash?
Absolutely. It was Kenny Oldage who then said, look, you are not an objective witness, and the evidence as well as the affidavit that you wrote indicates that the investigating officer has so much control over you. And he then likened him to a dog on the leash, and that did not sit well with the prosecutor, who stood up to object those remarks. And of course, there were also murmurs in the gallery, particularly from the NPA team. And the presiding officer has had to intervene and requested the defense lawyer, saying that, look, if such a remark is accepted in other courts, perhaps in this particular court, do not use that particular reference. But the witness himself did not seem to take offense. He was trying at all costs to maintain his emotions, unlike yesterday where he saw him become a bit emotional. Today, really, he seemed to be relax a little bit throughout the 5-hour cross-examination that he has had to endure.
Yeah, I say that is quite an ordeal, 5 hours of cross-examination. I understand that this forensic auditor has now wrapped up, but there are a total of 35 witnesses. Who's next on the stand tomorrow?
That's very correct. He's the first of the 35 state witnesses that have been lined up by the state. Tomorrow we're going to hear from Mr. Church. I think his name is Peter Church, if I'm not wrong. He is attached to a consultancy firm, Deloitte. You would recall that Nulane Investments, this company owned by a Gupta associate, it had to do an assessment of whether it would be feasible to implement the for instance, projects such as the Estina project. So it did not do that itself. As a result, it contracted Deloitte, and it paid Deloitte 1.5 million rand. And that's one of the arguments by the state when it says that this company should not have been appointed, and the services that it offers are not only exclusive to it, and there was no emergency. This is why they argue this contract is unlawful, and the company was paid nearly 25 million rand for that. So we know that the Estina project, where 250 million rand of public funds were spent, and of course there are people who are questioning the value, people saying that it did not benefit the people it was meant to benefit. That Estina project was established as a result of this very transaction of about 24 million rand, which was conducted by Nulane. So tomorrow we know that Mosebenzi Zwane, who is the former minister of mineral resources, but at the time of these transactions he was the MEC for agriculture in the Free State, is also implicated in that case. So he will be appearing. His case has now been elevated from the Regional Magistrates Court to the High Court. He will be appearing in the High Court for the first time. And some of the accused in the Nulane case will also have to appear along with him, particularly the former senior officials in the Department of Agriculture. And finally, the whole transaction, Sally, benefited the Gupta family, whom we know that are not in the country today. We heard from the National Investigating Directorate indicating that the process to extradite them, to bring them to South Africa to stand for trial, is continuing.